Ilara Vane pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the viewing window. Beyond the metal walls of the ship, the endless night of space stretched out in every direction. Stars shimmered like scattered diamonds. The ship's engines hummed with steady rhythm, the only sound that reminded her she was not drifting alone. She had dreamed of this view since childhood. On her homeworld, she used to climb onto the rooftop at night and stare up at the sky until her eyes burned. Her parents told her that humans had been among the stars for centuries now. But to Ilara, those stars had always felt untouchable. They were mysteries, stories, promises of places she would never see. Yet now, here she was, on board the Solace. Traveling through uncharted space toward the Veil Nebula, Ilara was not a soldier or a pilot. She was an astrophysicist trained in studying the movements of stars, the birth of galaxies, and the hidden whispers of cosmic radiation. For many on Earth and its colonies, such work seemed boring. But to Ilara, it was a way of listening to the universe itself. The mission had begun as a simple one. The Solace and its 25 crew members were assigned to explore the Veil Nebula, a region where scanners often failed and rumors of strange ruins persisted. Officially, the job was to map star systems, catalog resources, and confirm or deny those rumors. Unofficially, most of the crew believed this was another wild chase after myths of alien civilizations long gone. Ilara, however, felt something different. She could not explain why, but the thought of the nebula sent a shiver of excitement through her bones. It was as if she had been waiting all her life to go there, though she did not know why. The captain's voice broke through the silence of her thoughts. "Dr. Vane, we are approaching the outer edge of the veil. Report to the command deck." Ilara blinked, straightened her posture, and made her way through the narrow halls of the Solace. The ship was not large. It had been built for exploration, not war. Steel corridors gleamed under soft lights, and the scent of recycled air lingered. The crew moved with calm efficiency, but Ilara could sense the tension. Even seasoned explorers felt unease when flying into a nebula where sensors often failed. When she stepped onto the command deck, she saw the captain standing at the front. Captain Arden was a tall man with a sharp jawline and steady eyes. He had served in the exploration corps for 30 years and carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who had seen both wonders and tragedies among the stars. To his left sat the ship's pilot, Lieutenant Mara, her hands flying over the controls with practiced grace. On the right, Chief Engineer Tomas hunched over displays, monitoring the reactor's stability. Ilara slipped into her station and adjusted her screen. Waves of radiation poured from the nebula, forming complex patterns she quickly analyzed. She reported softly, "We are entering the veil. Radiation levels are rising, but nothing dangerous yet. Visibility will drop soon. We may lose long-range scanners." "Understood," the captain replied. His voice was calm but carried weight. "Lieutenant, bring us in slowly. Keep shields ready." The Solace drifted forward, swallowed by the glowing mists of the nebula. Outside, the stars dimmed as colorful clouds wrapped around the ship, shades of purple, green and silver twisting like painted smoke. It was beautiful, but it also felt otherworldly, as if they were entering a realm untouched by time. Hours passed as the ship moved deeper. Most of the crew grew restless. The pilot muttered about wasting time. The engineer grumbled about stress on the engines. But Ilara felt the opposite. She leaned closer to her monitor, scanning every flicker of data, searching for patterns. And then something unusual appeared. She frowned. "Captain, I'm detecting something not natural." The captain walked over. "Show me." On her screen, faint readings blinked in rhythm. It was not the random noise of a star. It was structured, intentional, a signal. Her heart raced. This could be artificial. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Some scoffed, whispering about old myths. But the captain studied the data for a long moment before nodding. "Lieutenant, adjust course toward the source." "Dr. Vane." "Keep tracking it." The Solace followed the signal through winding clouds. Slowly, a shape emerged from the nebula, massive structure, larger than any human vessel. At first, it looked like part of an asteroid. But as the ship drew closer, Details became clear. Smooth metal. Towering spires. Carvings etched into the hull. It was not human. Gasps filled the deck. Chief Engineer Tomas whispered, "It's impossible. The ruins. They're real." The captain's jaw tightened. "Prepare a shuttle. We'll investigate." The shuttle descended into the belly of the alien vessel. Dust coated every surface, and silence echoed in the vast halls. The walls glowed faintly, as if some power still lingered. Strange symbols lined the corridors, spirals, stars, and curves that seemed to move when viewed too long. Ilara walked at the front with her scanner, her heart pounding. She felt as though she had stepped into a dream. Every step carried weight, every breath filled with awe. The air smelled faintly metallic, yet breathable. Whoever built this ship had once lived, laughed, dreamed, and then vanished. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. Machines lined the walls, their purposes unknown. The technology was far beyond human design, yet eerily silent. Finally, they reached a central chamber. At its center stood a stasis pod, still glowing with energy. Lara froze. Inside the pod, a figure lay motionless. He was tall, with silver-toned skin that shimmered faintly even through the glass. His face was calm, peaceful, almost human, but not quite. His hair floated gently, as if moved by unseen currents, and his chest rose and fell in slow, steady rhythm. Her voice trembled. "He's alive." The crew erupted in disbelief. Some shouted it was impossible. Others whispered in fear. But Ilara could not look away. This was no ruin. This was no ghost. This was life. Captain Arden ordered the team to secure the chamber. Engineers examined the pod, astonished that it still functioned after centuries. Ilara pressed her hand against the glass, studying the figure within. She felt something stir inside her, something she could not explain. It was not fear, nor simple curiosity. It was as if the universe had led her here for this very moment. The captain turned to her. "Dr. Vane, you will lead the study of this being. Learn everything you can. But remember, this discovery could change humanity forever." Ilara nodded, though her mind swirled with questions. Who was he? How long had he slept here? Why had his people vanished? As the crew prepared to transport the pod back to the Solace, Ilara stayed behind for one last look. The alien's eyes remained closed, but for a fleeting second she thought she saw his lips move. A whisper. A breath. Her heart skipped. Perhaps it was her imagination, a trick of light and nerves. Yet as she turned to leave, she felt it again, that strange, unshakable sense that her life had just changed forever. Back aboard the Solace, the crew argued fiercely. Some believed the alien should be left alone, sealed away as a relic. Others wanted to wake him, hoping for knowledge, technology, or answers. And a few, driven by fear, suggested destroying the pod before it became a threat. Ilara sat in silence, her gaze fixed on the figure within the glass. She could hear the voices of the crew clashing around her, but their words faded into the background. For her, the choice was already made. She leaned close and whispered softly, words only the stars could hear. "You are not alone anymore." And in the stillness of the chamber, though his eyes remained closed, Ilara felt as though he had heard her. The stasis pod stood in the center of the laboratory like a silent guardian of forgotten times. Blue light pulsed gently across its surface, casting long shadows on the walls of the Solace. Every crew member who passed by stopped to stare. Curiosity mixed with unease, and whispers spread quickly through the ship. Ilara Vane sat at her console, eyes fixed on the pod. She had barely slept since they brought it aboard. Her hands trembled slightly as she scrolled through streams of data. The pod's systems were incredibly complex. Even the ship's engineers admitted they could only guess how it worked. What amazed her most was that it continued to function after centuries, perhaps longer. Captain Arden entered the lab, his boots clicking softly against the floor. He stood beside her, studying the pod with his usual calm. "Status?" Dr. Vane? She looked up. Stable. The life signs are strong. Whoever he is, his body is in excellent condition. But the systems are weakening. The pod is failing, the captain's brow furrowed. Can you keep him in stasis? Alara hesitated. Not for long. Hours, maybe a day at most. If we do nothing, the pod will collapse. He will die. Silence filled the room. The weight of choice hung in the air. Finally, Captain Arden spoke. Then we have no choice. Prepare to wake him. But keep security ready. The crew gathered outside the lab as preparations began. Security officers stood near the door, weapons at their sides, though their eyes revealed uncertainty. Engineers worked to connect human power lines to the pod, stabilizing its failing systems. Ilara stood closest, her heart pounding. She adjusted controls, reading unfamiliar symbols and converting them into rough translations. Her training as an astrophysicist had never prepared her for this, but somehow she understood fragments of the alien design. Beginning sequence, she whispered. The pod's glow intensified. Lights ran along its edges, faster and faster. The hum deepened into a low vibration that rattled the floor. Then, with a final flash, the glass covering began to retract. Everyone held their breath. The figure inside stirred. His chest rose and fell faster. His silver-toned skin shimmered under the lights, almost as if reflecting starlight itself. Slowly, his eyes opened two orbs of deep blue that seemed to hold entire galaxies within. Ilara's breath caught. He was awake. For a long moment he simply looked around. His gaze passed over the crew, the machines, the walls, and finally stopped on Alara. It was not a hostile look. It was searching, cautious, filled with something like sadness. He spoke. His voice low and musical, though the words were unlike anything human ears had ever heard. The sound carried weight, echoing as though spoken by more than one voice. The crew shifted uneasily. Weapons tightened in nervous hands. Ilara stepped forward, raising her hands slowly to show peace. I don't understand, she admitted softly. But I want to. The alien tilted his head, studying her. Then he spoke again, slower this time. His lips formed shapes unfamiliar yet strangely close to human speech. Ilara strained to listen, catching fragments. She pointed to herself. Ilara. She waited, her heart thudd, in GDI and GDD. After a pause, he touched his chest lightly. Kale, the room filled with whispers. The alien had a name. He had given it freely. Over the next hours, Ilara worked tirelessly to bridge the gap. She used gestures, simple drawings, and fragments of sound to form basic communication. At first, progress was slow, but Kale was patient. He repeated words, corrected her attempts, and gradually shaped their exchange into something clearer. Through their halting conversations, Ilara learned fragments of his story. His people were called the Aurelians, once spread across the stars. They were builders, dreamers, keepers of great knowledge. But long ago, war had consumed them. Kale had been placed in stasis, a last survivor when his world fell silent. When he spoke of it, his voice grew heavy, and his eyes dimmed like stars fading. The crew listened with mixed emotions. Some were fascinated, eager to hear more. Others remained fearful, whispering that this was dangerous, that no alien could be trusted. Captain Arden kept his judgment quiet, though Ilara could see the weight in his eyes. Later, when the crew had left, Ilara stayed behind with Kale. She brought him simple food and water, though he seemed to require little. He examined everything with quiet wonder, as if even the smallest objects were treasures. "Why do you help me?" he asked one evening, his voice halting but clear enough now. Ilara hesitated. "Because you are alive, because you deserve a chance, and because I feel like I was meant to find you." Kale studied her for a long time. Then, with the faintest hint of a smile, he said, "Perhaps fate." Her heart skipped at the word. Not all felt the same. Chief Engineer Tomas stormed into the captain's quarters late one night. We can't trust it, he argued. This Kale he could be a threat. He could call others, bring armies down on us. We should end it now, before it's too late. Captain Arden shook his head. We are explorers, not executioners. Until he proves otherwise, we treat him as a guest. But tension spread. Whispers turned into arguments in the mess hall. Some crew members refused to go near the lab. Others demanded Kale share his technology. Fear and greed began to twist the mission. Alara saw it happening, but she also saw Kale's quiet patience. He did not lash out. He did not demand. He only asked questions about humanity, about Earth, about the colonies, about how people live now. When she told him of humanity's struggles, wars, divisions, but also unity and hope, he listened intently. His expression often shifted between sorrow and wonder, as if he saw both the mistakes of his own people and the possibilities of a new beginning. Then came the warning. While scanning the nebula, Lieutenant Mara detected unusual movement. A fleet of ships was approaching human ships, not alien. They bore the insignia of the Crimson Syndicate, a powerful faction known for exploiting discoveries for profit. Captain Arden's face darkened as he studied the readings. They know. They must have picked up our signals, and they will come for him. The crew grew restless. Some argued they should hand Kale over to avoid conflict. Others insisted they defend him. Ilara felt fear rise within her, but also determination. She stood before the captain and said, "We can't give him to them. They will use him. They will twist everything he is into something dangerous. He deserves better. Humanity deserves better." Kale watched quietly, his eyes unreadable. Finally, he said softly, "If my presence brings danger, I will leave. Better I die than bring death to you." Ilara shook her head fiercely. "No, that's not who we are. We don't abandon those who need us." Her words carried through the crew. For a moment, silence filled the room. Some still looked doubtful, but others nodded slowly. Captain Arden finally spoke. "Then we stand together. Prepare the ship." That night, as the Solace moved to hide deeper within the nebula, Lara found herself alone with Kale in the lab. He sat by the window, gazing at the swirling lights outside. She joined him quietly. "Do you regret waking?" He did not answer right away. Then he said, "For many years I dreamed only of silence. I thought my time was over. But now?" He turned his gaze to her. "Now I see courage I thought lost. I see hope. In you. In your people." Ilara felt warmth spread through her chest. "You see too much in me." Kale's faint smile returned. Perhaps not enough. They sat together in silence, watching the stars drift past. In that moment, the fear of the coming battle seemed distant, almost unreal. For Ilara, the nebula was no longer a place of mystery. It was the place where she had found something she'd never expected: connection. But she also knew the danger was real. And soon, it would arrive. The Solace was small, fragile, and outnumbered. And yet, as she looked at Kale beside her, she felt a quiet certainty. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The Solace drifted deeper into the Veil Nebula, its engines running low and quiet to avoid detection. The glowing clouds outside shifted and swirled, hiding the small exploration ship within their embrace. But inside, tension grew heavier with each passing hour. Every crew member knew the truth. The Crimson Syndicate was coming. Their ships were faster, stronger, and built for war. The Solace was not. On the command deck, Captain Arden studied the holographic display with grim eyes. Red dots marked the Syndicate fleet, slowly closing in. 6 ships, he said. Armed frigates. They'll catch us in less than a day. Lieutenant Mara cursed under her breath. We can't outrun them. We can't fight them. So what's the plan, Captain? Arden's jaw tightened. He looked around the room, his gaze lingering on Ilara and then on Kale, who stood silently near the back. We have 2 options. Hand over Kale, or resist. The words hung in the air like a blade. Some crew members immediately spoke up. We don't owe this alien anything. We're explorers, not soldiers. We'll all die if we resist. Ilara felt her chest tighten. She stepped forward, her voice steady, though her heart pounded. If we give him to them, it won't end with Kale. They'll strip him of everything he knows, twist his people's legacy into weapons, and use it to crush anyone in their path. Do you want that blood on your hands? The room went quiet. Kale's deep voice broke the silence. She is right. My knowledge, my people's technology, in their hands, it will destroy worlds. I will go willingly. If my death protects you, then let it be so. No, Ilara's voice cracked, but she stood firm. She turned to Kale. You don't get to decide that alone. You gave up everything once already. Not again. Humanity won't abandon you. For the first time, Kale's expression shifted, not sorrow, but surprise. And then, very faintly, something like hope, Captain Arden finally spoke. Then we prepare to resist. We'll use every trick, every chance. If the Syndicate wants a fight, they'll learn what it means to corner humans in the dark. The crew moved quickly. The Solace had no heavy weapons, but it did have creativity. Engineers rigged mining charges into makeshift explosives. Pilots mapped the thickest parts of the nebula where enemy scanners would falter. Scientists, including Ilara, worked side by side with Kale, who shared fragments of Aurelian knowledge, small adjustments to shield harmonics, ways to redirect energy, tricks of light and sound to confuse enemy sensors. It was not much, but it was something. As preparations continued, Ilara and Kale found themselves working late into the night in the lab. Screens glowed around them, filled with equations and schematics. You risk much for me? Kale said quietly, his voice carrying both gratitude and sadness. Ilara looked up from her console. You're not a risk. You're proof that hope survives, even when everything else falls apart. That's worth fighting for. Kale studied her, his eyes deep as the stars. Your people. They are fragile, yet fierce. When I look at you, I see something my kind lost long ago. What's that? She asked softly. Refusal. Refusal to surrender even when the universe says you should. Ilara smiled faintly. That's humanity. Stubborn to the very end, they shared a quiet moment, broken only by the hum of machinery. For the first time, Ilara felt not just awe toward Kale, but closeness, a bond that stretched beyond words or worlds. The next day, the Syndicate arrived. 6 massive ships cut through the nebula, their dark hulls glowing red with weapon heat. Their leader, Commander Dareth, appeared on the Solace's coms. His face was hard, scarred, and filled with greed. Explorers, his voice sneered. You've found something valuable. Hand over the alien. Do this, and perhaps we'll let you live. On the command deck, Captain Arden's reply was firm. This man is under our protection. You'll get nothing from us. Dareth laughed, cold and sharp. Then you'll burn with him. The transmission cut off. Moments later, the first blast shook the Solace. Shields flared, alarms blared, the crew scrambled to their stations. The battle had begun. The Solace darted through the nebula, using its small size and agility to slip between clouds of ionized gas. Syndicate frigates followed, their cannons spitting fire. Explosions lit the mist in bursts of red and gold. Ilara gripped her station, calling out readings. Incoming on the port side. Shields at 60%. Divert power. Arden barked. Chief Engineer Tomas cursed as he rerouted systems. We're holding, but not for long. Then, one of the Syndicate ships stumbled into a trap. A mining charge detonated near its hull, tearing through shields and forcing it to retreat. Cheers erupted on the Solace, but they were short-lived. The enemy still outnumbered them 5-1. In the chaos, Kale stepped forward. There is another way. I can project a false signal, make them believe reinforcements are coming. But it will drain your ship's power. Do it, Arden ordered without hesitation. Kale moved his hands across alien symbols glowing on the console. Energy surged through the ship, lights flickering. Outside, the nebula shimmered, bending signals in ways human technology could not. To the Syndicate's scanners, it looked as if a fleet of ships had appeared on the horizon. Confusion spread among the enemy. 2 frigates broke formation, scanning wildly. The Solace used the distraction to strike, weaving between them and releasing more charges. Another explosion bloomed, forcing the Syndicate to retreat deeper into the nebula. For a moment, hope flickered, but the Syndicate commander was no fool. Realizing the deception, he ordered all ships to converge on the Solace. The little vessel shook violently as blasts tore into its shields. "We can't take much more," Tomas shouted. "Shields down to 30%. Arden's face was grim. "If they board us, it's over." Ilara turned to Kale, desperate. "There has to be something else. Some way to turn the tide." Kale's eyes closed. When he opened them, they burned with determination. "There is one way. I can channel my energy into your systems. It will create a burst strong enough to disable their weapons. But it may kill me, no." Ilara's voice shook. She grabbed his arm. "You've already lost everything once. I won't let you give up now." Kale looked at her, calm but resolute. "If sacrifice saves you, then it is worth it. Your people must endure. You must endure." Her grip tightened. "And what about me? What about what I want? I don't want a universe without you." For the first time, Kale's expression broke. His hand rose slowly, brushing against hers. "You are more than I dreamed humanity could be." The ship rocked under another blast. Time was running out. Captain Arden's voice cut through the noise. "Make your choice now." Ilara's mind raced. Fear, anger, hope all collided inside her. And then clarity came. She turned to Kale, her voice fierce. "We're not sacrificing you. Humanity doesn't win by throwing away life. We win by fighting together." She looked at the captain. "Use his knowledge, but not like that. Let us combine it with what we already have. Trust us." Arden studied her, then nodded sharply. "Do it." Working side by side, Ilara and Kale fused Aurelian technology with human systems. They adjusted shield harmonics, redirected reactor flow, and timed their maneuvers with pinpoint precision. The Solace glowed brighter, shields no longer just human-made, but something more. When the Syndicate fired again, the energy rippled harmlessly across the new barrier. Gasps filled the command deck. "Now," Arden shouted. The Solace dove through the enemy line, releasing its last charges. Explosions rocked the frigates, forcing them to scatter. The tiny ship slipped past their blockade and vanished deeper into the nebula's cover. For the first time in hours, silence returned. The crew erupted in exhausted cheers. Against all odds, they had survived the first clash, but Ilara knew it was not over. The Syndicate would regroup, and they were still vastly outnumbered. Yet something had changed. Humanity had stood its ground, and with Kale at their side, they were no longer just explorers running from giants. They were something more. Later, as the crew rested, Ilara found Kale by the viewing window. He stood quietly, watching the nebula swirl in endless colors. "You risked everything," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, you showed me there is another way. Your people. They fight not because they love war, but because they love life. That is strength greater than any weapon." Ilara stepped beside him, her shoulder brushing his. "Then we'll keep fighting. Together." Kale turned to her, his gaze steady and full of quiet light. "Together," he echoed, and though the storm of battle still waited for that moment. Between fire and starlight, hope burned brighter than fear. The Veil Nebula was calm after the storm of battle. Where once fire and destruction had filled the skies, now silence and stars stretched endlessly, glowing like jewels on a black sea. The human expedition ship drifted slowly, its hull scarred and broken. Its lights flickered weakly, like a candle almost at the end of its flame. Yet inside the battered vessel, life still moved and hope still lived. Ilara Vane walked through the quiet corridors. She touched the walls gently, as if thanking the ship for surviving when all odds had been against them. Around her, crewmates worked to repair systems. They were exhausted, but alive. And their eyes carried the strange fire of people who had faced the impossible and endured. Cale walked beside her. Tall and steady, though his face carried the weight of centuries. His silver skin glowed faintly under the emergency lights, and his galaxy-like eyes reflected both sadness and wonder. He had fought with them, not as a stranger, but as one of their own. And now the crew looked at him with respect instead of suspicion. As they reached the observation deck, Alara stopped. The wide glass wall showed the endless night of space. Stars stretched forever, distant suns burning silently, reminders of how small and fragile they were. Yet for her, the sight was no longer cold or lonely. Standing here with Cale beside her, she felt something new, something like belonging. Cale's voice broke the silence. Your people are unlike any I have known. You fight not because you wish for conquest, but because you cannot accept surrender. Even in the face of overwhelming power, you choose defiance. That spirit, it is rare. Alara smiled faintly. It's what makes us human, I think. We may not be the strongest or the oldest, but we keep going. We hold on to hope, even when there's no reason to. Cale looked at her for a long moment. Hope, he repeated, tasting the word like it was precious. The Aurelians once had hope, but we let fear and ambition consume us. We forgot what truly mattered, and because of that, we fell. Alara turned toward him, but you survived. Maybe it was for a reason. Maybe it was so you could see that even after everything, there's still a chance for something new. He lowered his gaze, as if unsure. But in his eyes, a soft light began to grow. The aftermath days passed as the crew repaired the ship. Supplies were short. Energy was low, but they managed. Messages were sent back to human colonies, warning them of the battle and reporting their survival. Humanity would know what had happened here, though Alara wondered how much of the truth they would accept. Would they see Cale as a miracle or a threat? Cale offered knowledge, guiding the engineers with Aurelian technology. His wisdom saved them time and lives. Yet he was careful, he gave enough to help, but never the kind of power that could destroy worlds. One evening, as the crew gathered for a simple meal, Captain Hale stood and addressed them. His voice was tired but strong. We were outnumbered. We were supposed to fail, but we didn't. We survived because we trusted one another. And because of Cale, who stood with us when he could have walked away, the captain paused, looking around at every weary face. Remember this moment. Humanity isn't alone in the stars. We are stronger than we think. And as long as we keep our hearts true, no empire, human or alien, can erase us. The crew cheered softly, not loudly, for they were still recovering. But in their eyes burned that same fire Alara had seen before. A human fire. A choice of paths later, Alara found herself walking with Cale again. He moved like someone carrying centuries of memory, yet each step seemed lighter than before. I must decide what to do, he said quietly. The knowledge I carry, it could change your species forever. It could bring wonders, or it could bring ruin. I have seen how power corrupts. I cannot risk repeating the mistakes of my people. Alara studied him. Then don't give humanity everything. Just walk with us. Teach us what we need to grow, not to destroy. Maybe the future doesn't have to be built overnight. Maybe it has to be earned. Cale stopped and turned to face her. For a long time, he said nothing. Then his lips curved into something rare on his face, a smile soft and almost uncertain. Perhaps. You are right. Perhaps the future must be grown slowly like a seed. And maybe, Alara added softly, you don't have to carry that burden alone anymore. Something shifted between them in that moment. Not just respect, not just friendship, but something deeper, something fragile and powerful at the same time. The quiet bond in the days that followed. Alara and Cale spent more time together. She told him stories of earth-ove oceans that stretched forever, a forest where light fell in golden rays, of the laughter of children in streets filled with music. He listened with wonder, as though each word was a gift. In return, Kale spoke of the Aurelians. He described cities that floated in the skies, its crystal towers that touched the clouds, songs sung not with voices but with light. His people had been brilliant, but also blind. They had reached too far, too fast, and in the end, they had burned themselves away. Yet as he spoke, Ilara noticed something change in him. The sorrow in his voice began to fade, replaced by warmth when he looked at her. For centuries he had been alone, but now he was not. One night, on the observation deck again, Kale stood beside her as the stars glowed like a million candles. His voice was low, almost uncertain. Ilara, do you ever wonder why fate brought me back when all my kind were gone? Why I, of all beings, was left behind? She turned to him, her eyes gentle. Maybe it wasn't fate. Maybe it was so you could see that the universe still has beauty. That even after all loss, there's still love waiting somewhere. Maybe you were meant to find it. For a long moment, silence filled the space between them. And then Kale reached out, slowly, carefully, as if afraid she would pull away. But she didn't. Her hand slipped into his, warm and human. Fragile yet strong. The forever she dreamed of when the ship was finally ready to travel again. The crew prepared for the long journey home. The stars stretched before them, endless and unknown, yet no longer frightening. Humanity had faced the darkness and survived. On the last night before they engaged the engines, Ilara stood again at the wide glass of the observation deck. Kale stood with her, their shoulders almost touching. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Choosing to stand with us?" Kale shook his head. "No. For the first time in centuries, I do not feel like a shadow of the past. With you, I feel alive." Ilara's heart ached at his words, but it was not a painful ache. It was a deep and beautiful one. She turned her eyes to the stars. "When I was younger, I used to dream of finding something greater among the stars. I thought it would be knowledge or discovery. But now, I think it was this. Standing here, not alone, finding forever, not in a place, but in a person." Kale looked at her, and in his eyes the galaxy seemed to glow brighter. Slowly, gently, he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. It was not just an embrace, it was a promise. A promise that even in the endless night, there could be light together. They watched the stars as the ship began to move, carrying them forward into the unknown future. Humanity had survived, and Kale had found a reason to hope again. And Ilara, between the night sky and his embrace, knew she had found the forever she had always dreamed of.